Hello, hello, welcome back to another one. How are you doing? So, today we'll be speaking about a digital era. We'll be speaking about how digital is disrupting how we operate, how AI is empowering our tools as well as our processes, and we'll be speaking about the current landscape with Michelle Randall, Chief Marketing Officer at Playvox. Michelle is an expert in the field, so we are in for a great conversation. Let's go. The episode today is sponsored by Playvox, Workforce Management Essentials for the Modern Contact Center. But more on that later. Michelle, welcome. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm terrific. Thank you so much for having me. It's a delight.
Thank you for joining us. So, in this podcast, we have been covering loads of topics. Today, we want to cover what the new digital era looks like. And we will go there in a second. But before that, something we ask every single guest is how do you define, in your own words, workforce management and what does that mean to you?
That's a great question. So, the way I define it is it's the way contact centers strategically forecast, schedule, and allocate people and resources to meet service level requirements or your customer service objectives.
I like the fact that you use strategically because that's something that most definitions people forget. I think it makes a difference. And taking advantage of WFM and on your definition, do you think that the way we perceive workforce management will change with the new landscape on so many different digital channels, or will it enhance it or make it different on how we
Yeah,
look at WFM?
yeah, that's a great question as well. Lots of good questions today. So the way I think about, yes, I think workforce management will continue to change and evolve. And what we've seen is the proliferation, that's easy for me to say, of digital channels. And in fact, digital has sort of crossed the chasm, as they say, in terms of voice is a much smaller part of most contact centers' traffic. And so I think the tools and solutions that people want to use will incorporate being able to forecast for digital. Because if you think about it, Andre,
Hmm.
most of the solutions that are out there were really created for a voice centric world that doesn't exist. So think about, you make a call. When you're forecasting for a call, that's really simple. It's sort of one and done.
Hmm.
But if you're handling email or chat or social media inquiries, you can do multiple inquiries, or many times you might have to do multi-step inquiries. And so I think what you'll see continue to happen is solutions will need to evolve. I mean, that's why Playvox was actually created, because we were created with the digital, all of the digital channels in mind. So I think solutions will continue to evolve to accommodate the growing traffic in digital channels.
Yeah, and it presents other challenges like so you mentioned about the one-to-one concurrency becomes a factor, like the skill set and the routing becomes an even more important factor when you have
Yeah.
concurrency on the channel. So I think it's a good point. And how mature do you think that the WFM industry in general is nowadays when we look at that digital landscape?
Yeah, so I think a number of years ago, I mean, I was at a number of the big players that are still around today. And back then, you had WFM if you were, above, say, 500 seats or something like that. And I'll even tell you when I had a call center roll up to me a couple of years ago, we forecast everything on spreadsheets. I think what you're seeing now is A, because of, the growing sense of digital channels, number one. Two is people desiring and requiring more flexibility in their work. It isn't just huge contact centers that need WFM, it's the smaller guys as well. So I would say, even if you have 50 seats, you still want WFM because it's enormously complex. Forecasting would be easy if everything sort of stayed the same. And I remember back in the day when I had a call center, I would sit down in August and we would do the budget for the following year. And I would look at my team and say, well, how do you know July is going to hit like this? And I need this many agents. Well, we took some of the averages, we took what's going on today. Well, as we all know, things change, and what's going on today is going to be very different than what's going on tomorrow. So you need that flexibility to adjust and like capacity plan and run different models to say if this changes or if this changes, and use real historical data. So to get back to your question, I think that WFM is more being used by many, many, many more people than it was 10 years ago. And I think that'll only increase.
Do you- I tried to, I wrote something based on what you said. So there is a word that you said about agility and the speed, and it's
Yes.
very clear there.
Yes.
And something you said, and I wrote it, and let me know if it's a good summary, is the role, especially on WFM, is becoming more business oriented and less operational, in the sense that it's less about that number in that particular piece, but it's the integration on the business. Like the example you mentioned about the budget. So it's not only trying to guess a number, it's like, how do you connect that gap with the business? And small or bigger businesses, you will have to define a strategy that then allows you to build that plan, and it's just not a simple average or whatever trend that you should project on top, correct?
Yeah, I love the way you said that back. I think that's a really good wrap up and good articulation of what I was saying. Absolutely.
So, Michelle, how do you see the role? So we spoke about technology and the digital era that we are living in. How do you see the role of the digital technology in the modern contact center? You already give some hints on that, but how do you see that role and that role evolving over time?
Well, here's the thing. We as consumers have all gotten used to getting serviced in the channel that we want to. So if I am somebody, I want self-help. I'll try a million things to help myself before I ever reach out. And then if I reach out, I would much prefer chat than voice. So I think that the changing landscape is that you have to meet customers where they are and in the channel they want to be served by. But I think what's happened is while most contact centers have embraced omni-channel as sort of a concept, and they understand and they allow customers to reach out to them in various ways, what hasn't kept pace for the most part are WFM solutions to
Hmm.
underlie that. So yes, you might have agents that can respond in email and chat or on social media, but you're trying to make your WFM solution almost do unnatural acts because it was really built for voice.
Yeah.
And you're now in this digital world that is very, very different. The other thing that changes is the skill sets that you need. So somebody might be great on the phone, but there's a completely different skill set when you're
Hmm.
answering somebody on social media. Like, as we all know, there's been a lot of social media responses that have gone viral because people are like, can you believe this agent said this to me? And so you have to keep that in mind. And in chat as
Hmm.
well, you must be a lot more nuanced, and you can't, when you're talking to someone on a phone call, you can understand like their tone and things like that. You
Hmm.
can't do that in written communication. So you have to be a lot more careful
Double careful.
about your word choice.
Yeah. Can I don't know what your opinions are on this. And one of the things I've been debating myself is we have been seeing an evolution of channels. So like you said,
Mhm.
I would say 10 years ago, everyone was voice was primary, and everything was revolving around voice. Even there was no
Yeah.
solution for anything else. Like you had to adapt to fit on the voice already pre-made template. Over time, it changed. Email became very predominant. Now digital is getting very predominant, and one of the things I'm seeing is there is a cannibalization between all channels, but the one that is shrinking at a faster pace, it's between voice and email. But email is actually getting more kind of a formality. Like you have the
Yeah.
chat, you have like an email is just a formality. I was speaking with someone recently that said kind of provocatively that he believes that email over the next decade will disappear, will become our actual physical emails we receive, and he believes that will be some kind of new version of a digital technology. I don't know how companies are prepared for that, first starting there, but I wanted to,
Yes.
how do we get prepared? So if we get to that point once where technology is going to disrupt completely the way we operate, how do we get prepared? How do companies can start to become prepared to embrace this digital transformation, and what kind of tips would you advise? I mean, not going to the extreme of email going away, but like you get the point. Like if something
Yes.
really massive happens, like how do companies get prepared for what's to come?
So first of all, I want to address the provocativeness of the person you talk to, because I actually don't think it's that provocative. Because I have two teenagers who are 16 and 13. They never look at their email ever. Everything is over chat or something like that. They never ever look at
Hmm.
their email. And and in fact, my eldest nephew, who is 23, missed out on a job opportunity because he just never looks at his email either. So I think
It's a
that,
perfect example.
knowing, yeah, exactly. So knowing that the younger generation is definitely moving away from email, and they think of it as like our technology, their parents or grandparents' technology. And then going to your question of how do you prepare, so I think you have to embrace chat. Chat's going nowhere. You also have to embrace AI and start thinking about what are the repetitive things in your contact center or competitively ask questions that most agents answer, and how can you automate those processes that don't necessarily need a live human. The other thing that I think people need to be prepared for is, as you begin to automate and offer more self-service options, then when somebody does reach an agent, they're going to have much more complexity in their requests. So you're
Hmm.
actually going to need to up level the folks that you're hiring, and that's happening today, because you need to hire for empathy, for curiosity, for being able to do things like, I need to contact four different people to solve this inquiry because I can't just give this
Hmm.
person a generic answer, because if I could have, they wouldn't have reached out to me in the first place, because we have
Hmm.
all of those tools in our self-service. So I think you're going to have to prepare to hire up, up level your skill set, and also start modeling what happens if email goes away and then chat becomes more predominant.
You mentioned the AI and this automation piece. I think
Yeah.
definitely it's a trend that we are seeing more and more. Back to our previous question where we were speaking about voice, and one of the things I still notice is there is a lot of people willing to do the change and do that step, but this is a complicated step because it's not only getting the technology. You need your processes, you need all the
Yes.
change
Yes.
management, you need all the effort that sometimes even needs to start before you actually go and get the right technology to evolve. And I think there's a lot of probably a lot of persons listening, and even people that are going through that first step of the journey, and I seeing and then they are seeing the headlines about AI and about the digital transformation. They are looking, "Ooh, we are missing that. How can I jump in?" But then they are not. They don't
Right.
have the infrastructure prepared for that jump, and it's scary. I'm assuming that gap. It's very scary.
I love that you said that, because bringing in technology to solve a problem will not solve your problem. All it will do is expose all of the things in your process that are not consistent. And if you
Hmm.
don't have consistency, you can't automate what isn't consistent. So for example, if you constantly get a particular query, and in some instances you answer it one way, in some instances you answer it another way, and in some instances you do this other thing, well, then you can't automate that. It makes it really, really difficult. So you almost have to take a step back and map the customer journey and map the common inquiries that you're getting. And then you can build technology on top of that. But to bring in technology before you've taken the time to understand what our process is and is it consistent is a waste of time, money, and resources, in my opinion.
Hmm. Yeah, and eventually will lead to a lot of frustration to the employees. That in the end of the day, that's the ones you want to make happy as well as the customer. So it's a very it's a fine balance to actually achieve, and I think it's a very good point. Talking on AI, and I mean, AI is everywhere. Everyone writes, speaks about it. How do you see AI transforming the contact center landscape in I'm not even going to say in the next years, but in the next year, like next months. How do you see that going through that contact center industry, and eventually more specifically to WFM? But start on the first. Let's start on the contact center industry.
Yeah, so here's what I would say is AI has been around for years. There's been whisper technology that's been around for years. There's been prompts that have been around for years. People have used, if the customer wants this, then say this. So I would say AI is not something new to the contact center environment, and people have been using and applying it for many, many years. However, what I am seeing is data is becoming more available, and AI technology is becoming a lot more accessible and more of a commodity. And the result of that is it allows us to create tools to better assist customers to self-serve, and then agents to be better supported. So for example, chat GPT is on everybody's minds, and is the hot new trend. But I think that beyond the hype, it's well placed to extract and create better help content, and more of that, when something looks like this, then respond with this, and provide to that technology to customers and agents so that you can improve response time more quickly, and have your responses be more accurate. So I think what we'll see is more of an understanding and appreciation of how people want to work in those environments. And the contact center is a stressful and demanding place, and I see AI being able to give us more flexibility and personalization as a result, and more help for both customers and agents. And specifically, sorry, I'm going to transition a bit in workforce management.
Right.
I think workforce management needs to be positioned to support in all of this. So when I was saying at the beginning that agents are in high demand. They always have been, but it's only gotten worse with the Great Resignation, quiet quitting, all of that. And so agents want to be engaged and empowered, and supporting more flexible work models is where WFM is going to go. And understanding and being able to support when and how people work and what they can work on, I think is going to be sort of the next era of
Mhm.
workforce management.
Yeah, and specifically on workforce management, and you made a good transition. So one of the things where I think AI will have a lot to play. I think it's already working there. I already saw it working, but I think at a mass market level, or in a way that is everyone can benefit from it, probably not there yet. Which is, and I spoke with the previous guest about this. It's about alarmistics. So real time management specifically is something that between, if it's a WFM team or even the supervisors, managers, like everyone needs to be looking at something to take an action. Like it's really really hard for you to control everything. And now with the power of AI, you can create just alarmistics for the things that matter, and you basically can refocus your people and your workforce on the WFM side for what really matters. Um, is that something that you have been seeing also as a trend, like more people willing to refocus the WFM resources on the things that really matter and trying to use AI and different technologies to fast track those manual steps?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, segueing a little bit to what Playvox actually does is we use AI in our
Hmm.
tool, so that, when I was going back to in a previous role, when I would sit down with the team and have them say, here's your forecast and your schedule for next July, and it was a year away. So being able to use AI insights and use historical volumes to model what you might need in the future, and then matching those against all of the people needs. So when, at the beginning, when we were talking about workforce management and how I see workforce management would be really really easy if we didn't have humans involved in it. And what I mean by that is, you can come up with, like, to meet this service level, we need this many agents. Okay, that's fine. But now you need to match that against, I leave for my daughter's soccer game every Thursday at 3 o'clock, and Tim has an appointment with his buddies to do something else at 10 o'clock every day. And so now I need to make my needs match the needs of my workforce. and do it dynamically, like do a bunch of models to say, okay, well, what if I make this change, and what if I make this change? And the ability to do that far out sort of strips the ability to do that in, say, an Excel spreadsheet. So
Mhm.
I think you need to leverage AI to help you model what you may or may not need in the future based on what's actually happening.
And now, a quick word to our sponsor, Playvox. Man, how many times you said, I wish I could ditch this spreadsheet? Well, now you can. With Playvox, cloud native, easy to deploy workforce management solution, you can increase efficiency, reduce costs, while keeping an agile and happy workforce. Use Playvox to forecast, schedule, and manage your workforce in real time. Do you want to know more? Go to our sponsor page in www.fm.com or click on the first link in the description. And now, back to the episode.
That's perfect. So let's shift to strategies. So any recommendations on strategies that organizations can take to start embracing any specific steps that, in your opinion, organizations can start to make to embrace these changes?
Well, first, move away from spreadsheets and Google Sheets. I think we've stretched that. I don't even know if I would say it's technology, but I think we've stretched it enough. And it's time for folks to leverage real tools to do forecasting and scheduling and then monitoring adherence and all of that. And I would also say start slow. You can't overnight change everything. So years ago, when I was at a different company, also in the contact center space, and folks were starting to talk about omni-channel, and they would try to do it all. They would be like, yes, I'm going to do omni-channel, and we're going to start supporting email and chat and all of it. And guess what? They were not prepared. So in that journey, we would always say, take one channel at a time. First add email and see how it goes and
Exactly.
see what things come up, and then add chat, and then add, social media, etc. I think the same steps need to be taken on workforce management. The biggest one being, okay, it's time to step away from spreadsheets unless you're really, really small. But even smaller folks can leverage WFM technology today.
I agree with you. Totally agree with you. So let me take advantage of having you here as a guest today, and just to get a bit more personal for everyone to know a bit more about Michelle. Who inspired you the most and why across your career?
Okay, so Ruth Bader Ginsburg is, a biggie, just because I think we as women have a lot to thank her for in terms of equity and equal rights and things like
Paving the
that.
way.
Right, and we're definitely not there, but getting there slowly but surely. Also, I know this sounds really cheesy, but my dad worked, grew up in a really poor household, went into the military after graduating high school, came back, married my mom, and worked three different jobs and went to school and got his bachelor's at night and then got his MBA at night and on the weekends, and gave us a very different life than he had grown up with, and really loved being a parent. And that's something I tried to embrace. He always balanced work with being home. I don't remember him not being at any major event for me, and that's the parent that I want to be.
Wonderful. To add on a happy note, and I think your words were just perfect. So, any final words, one for anyone that is trying to look into this digital transformation and try to create their own strategy? And what is the future you see for WFM and WFO in general? Like what's next?
So I think if you're just starting to look into what you might be able to transform in your contact center, I find my best inspiration from people who have been there and done that. So I make use of reaching out to other chief marketing officers and saying, "Hey, I heard you did this cool thing. How did you do it? And what processes need to be in place, etc." So reaching out to peers, I think, is really, really helpful.
Mhm.
There's a ton of content out there that you can read and absorb and learn from. And then in terms of the future of WFM, what I see is more agent engagement and personalization and gamification and things like that. Because what you really need to do is continue to engage and empower your agents. Back to what we talked
Mhm.
about earlier, it's really hard to find good people. And once you find them, you have to make sure that they're engaged and empowered to do their job. So anything that helps you do that more effectively is the future of WFM.
Thank you so much for those words. For everyone listening, I hope you guys take advantage of. I think there is loads of different nuggets that you can take for your strategies. Michelle, thank you for the time today. It was wonderful to have you on our show, and speak to you soon. Thank you.
This has been delightful. Thanks for having me.
The episode today was sponsored by Playvox. Go to wwfm.com, go to our sponsor page, and get to know them better.